very hard to get used to the smaller footsteps. So literally, because you're pretty much tip to tip, I really don't need to move more than that far to make a strike to your door. It shouldn't be big, but a lot of people will find that they're making really big steps, and what that does is that their elbow is staying bent on a strike. So I'm trying to get some light behind my elbow so you can see. So door in particular, you want to make sure that the door movement is about the elbow extending. So rather than the wrist overextending or coming up, or the arm coming up, door is coming from this position about 30 centimeters between here and your hip and pushing locked. So once you have that locked position, you have very little space to go. However, if you're doing too big a step, your elbow will end up staying bent. You'll have a really weak door, or you'll have had to accommodate by going straight down with the arm, and that's not the position we want. We want to be striking up into the door. So if you look at your door where you've got the door plate itself and then you've got the stitching, we're aiming to lodge into the stitching. That'll keep it on the door. Otherwise, it has a tendency to slide off. So door, you just want to be going from here, locking that elbow. Lock, lock. And if you finish your strike and this is soft, then you've stepped too far, because you might be connecting, but this has stayed soft. So if you're having trouble with that kind of distance, a good exercise is to extend first and then move into the strike so you can work out the distance. But now, we're just going to do short strike, focusing on keeping the shoulder down, keeping that relaxed until it comes through. Make sure the wrist is not rotating. So do in particular, it's very much about, I'm trying to really get good lighting on this one. It's from here, lock. This doesn't change a great deal. It just gets extended forward. So I'm going to do Dotski. So if you're the Motodachi, all you're going to be doing is just a little snooch to open you out here. If you're going to be attacking Do, which you both can do, I think safe. I'm not sure if Elio's got Do on.
No.
No, that's okay. You can still do this pretty safely. If you're Motodachi, switch open. If you want to give them a bit more of an opening, you can turn the body forward so that they can come straight up into the stitching. The better someone is at this technique, the less you open. So that little twitch would be enough. But again, if you want to practice getting it stuck into the stitching, you can open wide and flat on. Again, remembering to absorb the movement when they strike. So as it comes in, moving back with it. So you're trying to make sure they can still connect to the door, they can still feel where it lands, but you're not getting hurt. So, door skip. Command for this is just skip, and then a nash for the subsequent ones. So off you go, have a bit of a play. I'll work here. So again, coming into Kamae, two very clean positions. So from Naore, we're going to go Kamae, hand on weapon, so as it rotates, stepping over strongly into center. Yep. Skip. Good, nice, Elio. Good.
Kick. Nice. Go. Nice. Go. Nice. Go. Nice. Go.
Okay. Yummy. Okay. So a little bit of feedback. Eduardo, that's looking quite nice. Just make sure that there's occasionally you shift your body around. So you shift your kamae around when you're doing the ski. That's not all the time. It's just occasionally. Elio, just be careful. So when you strike, what's happening for you is you're kind of getting a little bounce off. You're going papa, papa, papa. They'll actually want you to just stick it for a little bit longer before you withdraw. So you kind of need to see it as two movements. So yeah, yeah, yeah. So it's basically the sound. Your POC sound is great, but you're bouncing off. So it's not giving them a chance to judge how well you've hit. So with Jukendo and Tanken, you just need to try and hold it on the target a little bit longer before you withdraw. But otherwise, that's actually looking quite nice from both of you.
Okay.
So let's do Nodo's basically the same. We're not going to worry about Nodo for the moment. Let's look at men. Now, I believe, Eduardo, you're using a Kodachi rather than a Tanshinai, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I gave my Tanshinai to Ellie.
That's okay. What that means is that we'll probably not be. Actually, I'll get you to practice men, but without receiving. So you'll be doing this one singly, partly because I don't want you to damage the other weapon. I don't want you to damage the Tanshinai by using it against the Kodachi. So we're just going to work on men as individuals. So I'm going to just raise this up a little bit so you can see what I want to work on. So key features with men is coming up to Jordan, so fist width from the head. You're already familiar with that one. But as we strike, we don't want to be coming down that way. This is an elongated position. It's quite over the top. This wrist is extended over the top. And the reason for this is that we're trying to hit with this area here on the crown of the head, because this is not a sharp weapon. There's a bit of a pointy end here, but the rest of this is just solid, fairly dull metal. It's a bludgeoning move. So what you're trying to do is basically crack down the skull. And you can't do that if you have an angle on the finish of the cut. So it must be an elongated cut. So you should feel the pressure of your corte coming over the bump of your wrist. It's a long position. You don't see men used very much in high-level Shiai because Do is the most efficient. But when it gets done, it has to be done well. And you do still have to learn it regardless. Doesn't matter how many people say no, you will never use men. You still have to practice. So I'll try not to hit the window. So from here, so long position, you're trying to cut down to about here in alignment. So don't stop too high, because this really has to smash through that position. Back foot. People forget the back foot for this one. I'll try and give you a positioning here. So I'm coming up. It has to come with you. If it drags, you'll end up with this kind of long, very balletic position, but you're going to lose your power. So you have to make sure that that back leg from here is getting drawn in underneath your hip. So I'm finding a right camera angle so you can see the hips and my hands. So from here, even just starting from here, you can see I'm maintaining pretty much the same distance the whole way through, because this is coming in directly. It's the only way you're going to get in fast enough to actually do men in Shiai. If you leave it behind, you're never going to reach, and you're going to end up too slow. So really focus on bringing that back leg in. Again, I have to show off my lovely, lovely legs for this one. So from here, you can see I'm maintaining that distance. I'm not letting it drag behind. It has to come in strongly. You'd know that probably from Kendo anyway, but it gets lost a lot more in Tanken, and I'm not entirely sure why that is. So just going to do men. I won't get you to partner up for this one because it's a bit dangerous to block with the two different weapons. One of them's too hard for the other. So just doing men down the room. So
I had
elongation.
I had one question about men and also about kote, but it's the same thing. So we strike, and then so when it's like the skip, we thrust, and then we push back. But for men, what's the do we pull down or what's
so depending on what you're practicing, generally, so if I go men, I come straight back down as I move back. If you're doing it in some forms of the kata, it's men, and then you draw it. So you split. So I've gone men, I draw it down the face, so I'd be changing the angle, coming down the nose, down to the chin as a threat, and then I would withdraw in different fashions. If you're just doing it as a men, like someone may, yeah, as your partner steps back, you'd come down. So if I'm blocking for motodachi here, you've struck. My job as the motodachi is to turn and give you enough space to go from here to here. When you're doing it on your own, it can be literally, yeah, and pull it all back. Yeah. If you want to maintain it as a threat, and this does come up if you're doing it like a tsuki-nagashi. So if you've got men, you can then threaten nodo as you continue forward or backward. So really the position after men will depend on what you're trying to do. But if you're just doing men cuts, practicing on your own, it's fine, just go, yeah, and bring it straight down. That's fine.
Hi.
Any other questions on that, or?
For now, no.
Okay. All right. So let's practice men cuts.
Thanks.
Mate. Men with it. Yeah. Yeah. Nice. You met? All right. Thing is, we've only got half an hour before you get your lunch break. We'll move on. That actually looked pretty good from both of you, so that was really nice to see. So what we're going to do now is Daiichi Kyoshu, which is all the basic attacks. Now you can do this paired if you like, or you can just do this as the attacks. So I'll show you what the attacks are. I'll show you what the openings are for motodachi as well. So Daiichi Kyoshu, honestly, you can set up this pattern however you like, and you can modify it to your needs, but it's basically just making sure you hit all the key techniques. So normally you start with do, men, no do, kote, harai tsuki, and it can be harai tsuki nagashi as well. Okay. So do, men, nodo, kote, harai tsuki. So it helps if you're working on the same pattern. If you are opening as motodachi, do, men, so bring it all the way. So for do, you're just opening that position, or you can just do a little tsunochi depending on how good they are. So do, as you step back, men, so bring the arm well out of contention, lift the chin for nodo, kote, and when it comes to harai tsuki, you'll come back together, give them a little bit of a tap so they remember, harai tsuki. So if you open them up in the wrong order, it's not a big deal. They'll just hit that target point instead. But again, it helps if you're both working on the same one. So do, men, nodo, kote, haraitsuki. So do you want to partner up for this or do this solo?
I think we can partner up with the mask one. So let me just get my kote.
That's okay. Yeah. Key things to remember with kote, for anyone who is doing kote should not be done hard. The tanshinai, in particular, are very inflexible compared to a shinai because they're shorter. There's no flex here. If someone does kote on you and it hurts or you get bruising, you should stop and you should let them know. This is not a one for kote. Kote is about the tsunuch in the fingers, more of a little bounce. Anywhere on the kote is a valid target. So they could be hitting up by the knuckles, up by the wrist, or down by the more exposed arm. So you should never be trying to put a lot of force into kote. You're not trying to break their arms. You're not trying to do any damage. It's more a bit of a flick. So flick, flick. So it should kind of just lightly bounce off. You're telling them you've hit kote. You're not trying to break anything. And that's the thing when most people start doing tankendo, especially if they come from a kendo background, the habit is to hit hard because with the longer shinai, they're used to more flex. And so they end up hurting people a lot more. So kote, just think of it as a very gentle love tap to their wrist. You're just letting them know it happened, but it shouldn't hurt. It's more just a reminder. So if I hit myself like that, I should be okay with that. And I'm not wearing a kote. It should be the same if I am wearing a kote. So do, me, nodo, kote, haraitsuki. So have a go. I'll keep a little bit of a watch on.
The kote is just hajime or?
Yeah, so basically what you would normally do is you start at toma, so a little, like one step between you. Daiichi kyoshu, hajime. So you step in for hajime and open up. If you want to do it at mai, it'd be daiichi kyoshu, hajime, and just opening up. And then they just finish the pattern. All you're really basically telling them is what they're doing, begin, which you already know, but you can do it, as I said, from toma or from mai. It just varies as to whether you step in and do the tsunuch, or if you stay in position and do tsunuch.
Okay. Hey,
right.
Thank
you. So for anyone doing it at home, I'll act as gore, daiichi kyoshu, hajime. I better watch that. Good. 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 Yamet. That looked nice, both of you. So good, strong strikes, good footwork. So that looked like a nice combination from both of you. Very nice men, yeah, Elio. That looked good. Okay, so because we've only got half an hour left, I'm going to get you to do a little bit work of irimi seita, because that is one of the key features of Tankendo. And it's one of those things that you really do want to do with a partner. You can do it without, but it's very, very hard. So you two are both fairly familiar with the 3 irimi seita?
Yes, I'm just not sure that that's really close distance. I'm not sure that we can
Whether
do
you can do it right now? Okay.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's like one of the most important parts in Tanken, but at the moment,
yeah,
not sure. Like at a distance,
okay.
It's okay.
All right. What we might do is we'll still practice some of the theory separately, because that's what I've had to do on Zoom all of last year, just to make sure that when you do come into doing it together, you do have the technique and the specific things. So if we're starting with the first one, which comes from number 6, Tantaitan, basically you're both starting in Shudan. What you're doing, and I'll borrow the other one for this. So if we are Tanken to Tanken, what I'm trying to do is lock tsuba to tsuba and push them downwards. So it's stepping in, rotating over the top to lock tsuba to tsuba. It's really hard to do this with another weapon. So that means you can keep pushing down towards their body line. So stepping in, I keep pushing in there. I bring my left foot in. I'm still keeping my left hand on my hip until I'm sure they're locked. When I've pretty much pulled up into position, so I brought my feet together, I know I'm still in control, and I have the opportunity to then grab their elbow. So either locking on the elbow joint, or what I prefer to do is grab and twist their kikogi, because my arms are small and everyone else's arms are big. Twist, lock, and yank it down. So you're trying to break their positioning. So trying to demonstrate here, bring it forward. This is where we need that really quick hip movement, where I've locked onto the elbow, I've pulled back, and as I've done so, I drop my hips, I drop my knees, because that'll pull them down as well. It will break their balance. And then a very sharp ski. So key one with this is when we're in position here, is this back foot needs to rotate up onto the ball and around to bring your hip around. So as we do that, try and keep your arm close to your body. I normally have the forearm kind of resting on the hip. It'll just depend on your door and your positioning. What that does is it helps you drive forward into the door. If you have the arm off, you're more likely to end up with a rotation with your tanshinai, and that's going to glance off their door. So you want it locked onto the body if you can, drive it straight through, sharp hip back. Cover their arm and their weapon as you withdraw. So what I really just want to focus on here is just those minor bits of technique. Sorry. So lock, wait till you're kind of both feet together. So you're in neutral stance, you're still positioned over the top of them. And then a really quick drop.
Okay.
Rotate that back hip, rotate on the ball of the right foot really sharply. So those are kind of the key elements for a nice strong irimi seita. So just practicing that. Obviously, if you're not practicing together, you are going to have to imagine a lot of this. They're locked down there. Their arm is just here across from me. And aim downwards. A lot of people aim too high. They miss the elbow joint, or it means that then they don't end up dropping it down enough. So pull it down. Drop your weight. And if you do something like Aikido, you'll understand about that breaking balance position. So just coming into Kamae. Both of you, yeah. That's right. So stepping in, locking over the top. Bring your left hip forward with your left hand. And now a quick hip rotation, drop your weight. Using your right hip and the ball of your right foot. Yeah. Cover their wrist and withdraw. So just practice this in your own time. Lock, step it up, swap. Yeah. 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 Nice, Elio. Good. Eduardo, when your hand comes off, think about coming over the top rather than underneath. Because at the moment, if you're coming underneath, it'll be a bit harder for you. So bring it over, and that'll help with the downward movement as well. That's really the only feedback I have on that one for you. So just making sure that you're not coming up and under. So not this, because that'll help with that drop of the weight. Yeah. But other than that, that's pretty much the only feedback I've got for the two of you on that one. That looks pretty good. So the other Irimi Seitai, this one's a little bit harder to demonstrate, obviously, because it's much better with a partner. You both started in Geidan in number 7. You've rotated and blocked. So they're down low. My trusty other Tanken. They've come in sort of for your hip. You've locked here. That means their arm is up that way. Pretty much where you'd be if you rotated up. So rotate. Their arms up here. You're going to step in. And you're going to come underneath their arm. So one of the ways you can pretend this is happening is that's your block, that's their arm, step underneath, and you lock it to your body. Obviously, then you need to get your Tanken out, but that's kind of the positioning you want. So if that's them, that's their arm, I'm sweeping up, locking it to my chest. I bring my Tanken around theirs. Here. So this one's a lot harder to visualize mentally, but you're locked, their arms there. So if you can visualize that arm position, lock the elbow to your chest. If you can rotate up. So this is underneath their underarm. So if you give it a shove up there, they're going to be immobilized. So you both be down in a Geidan position. More. Yeah. Elo, now you just bring yours out and over the top of his weapon. So back behind. It's a bit like a little swing position. And then you do the.
Okay.
You're basically, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So you bring it around to block them, both their arm and their weapon, in behind your body, and then you've got an open clearance for the ski. Yeah. So this one's a much harder one to visualize. So Eduardo, if you aim for his lower hip, yeah, and then you want to look tuba to tuba again, if you're doing this properly, and then you grab underneath that arm as you come up, lock the elbow to your chest, pull it out and over, good, and then ski. Yeah, that was it. That was nice. Yep. rotate. Yeah, rotate the hip. Good.
Okay.
Good. Okay. All right. So these are really hard to do without a partner. But you've got the basic positions there. So when you can actually do close contact stuff, you should be fine. Did you have any questions about the Eremisei at all?
I actually, so there's this one, and then there's the blocking for the men.
Hi.
But I actually have one question that's even more basic, Guillaume, which is on, let me try to
Demonstrate, yep.
Okay, maybe on this camera. So it's about the Kamai.
Okay.
So maybe I can do it from here. So we're 45 degrees, kind of. Feet are this 1.5 feet, I guess, spread apart. But my, where should I aim with my Kansen of my Tankendo? What's the best way to think about the front arm?
Okay. Bearing in mind that while I might have knee done, I will not say I am the be all and end all of these answers. So I can also put this to one of the senseis in Japan if it comes to it as well. But so yes, you are looking at kind of a 45-degree angle on your hip. What you're trying to do here is still keep center. So I'm still pointing kind of at their heart. So if I'm matching to myself, this is kind of tip to heart, but the angle is still kind of threatening the eye line. So it's low down vertically, but the angle is still one where I could go straight up into the eye line. It's hard because it's all black against black, which makes, or blue against blue. So you still want it kind of sort of centered across your body. So you don't want it sort of sitting out here, that's too wide. You don't want to angle that way. You're going to be bringing your elbow closer to the center. So you still have that center line, even though your body's aiming more out that way than forward. Okay. See if I can give you a bit more light this way. So this is really hard to visualize. Sorry. So front foot's kind of towards you. Back foot is just out sort of corner. Hips are out to that corner. Head towards you, but bring the elbow across. So the natural position, if I had my elbows next to each other, is kind of here. That's my elbows in against the body. But this one comes out to the back hip. This one comes forward to cover your center. Does that kind of answer the question?
Yes. It's because, okay, so here it should be kind of inside, right? And then there's this distance. Okay, but then also the wrist, I have to put it a little up, right, for the right height.
The angle, height?
Height. So then it's just going there without moving the body, just height. So when I do ski, I shouldn't do this, right? Because I'm doing this. It's just.
Yeah. So you don't want to be rotating your body to those. Your body should stay in the same position. All that's moving is your legs underneath you. One way to think about this is if you stand with your feet forward, and a bit like if you're doing kendo, having the weapon in front of you at that 30, like that 30 centimeter position here. Now just bring your leg and your arm back.
Okay.
That's roughly where you should be. So because here that's your arm centered or your weapon centered in the middle, when you rotate, you're trying to keep it there.
Okay.
So that may help just in feeling where that position is. Hopefully.
No, it is much, for me it's easier to think about that.
Yeah.
And also,
and that's the thing, I think a lot of
here, sorry, just so dance positioning, it's here, so hip bone, right? And elbow back.
Yep. Yeah. So I think a lot of the other players I know, they tend to basically wrap their fingers around that part of the tare, just so that they don't let go. So it just comes with a habit, kind of just when I'm not wearing a tare, I'm literally grabbing onto one of the creases and just grabbing on there because it's much easier than letting it go. It just sits there naturally. Yeah, I found a lot of people who do kendo, or even people who don't understand this concept a little bit better, because that feels quite natural to then just draw back and keep that where it is. That's pretty much where we're aiming for. Okay, so we've got 15 minutes, roughly. I will give you a choice. We can do a little bit more kihon or maybe some oil, or do you want to look at some kata? I know we don't have a long time to look at either.
What kind of maybe oil is, because kata is very big, lots of things. Maybe
you've seen a lot of my kata videos anyway, so.
Yeah, it's different. Okay. Like the good thing about this kind of practice is that we're getting feedback, and yeah, things that
yeah, I guess that's another thing. Is there anything in particular the two of you would like me to look at while you've got me here? Is there anything that you really just want to get a bit more fine feedback
on? Lots of things actually.
Any particular favorite?
Yeah, I think so. The kamai was one of the things that I had some doubts. I actually have one doubt about Juken.
Okay.
I actually do more Juken than Tankendo, but
look, everyone has a favorite. I admit I do favor Jukendo, but I do like Tanken as well. So what was the Juken question? And Ilya, the same for you. If you've got any specific questions, throw them at me now while you've got a chance.
Yeah, it's a I don't know if you saw the video. Let me just get first the Mabuju.
Okay. All right.
So there's a video with Terada Sensei and I think Sato Sensei. Not sure. Or Yamaguchi Sensei. I'm not sure, but Terada Sensei for sure. It's explaining about the front end and about this part here. How it's at the end of the strike, how it should be. So I'm not sure I understood it the proper. It's kind of funny because there are things that are probably even worse in my Juken than this, but this.
To be honest, everyone has trouble with this.
Yes.
Everyone has trouble with this, and each sensei will probably try and explain it a different way, and you'll just get really confused. So what I'll show you now is what I understand it to be, but bear in mind, like anytime you're in front of a sensei, whatever they say happens to go.
Okay.
But as I understand it, the idea is that this front hand should be relaxed, and your hand is still over the top, but you're leaving this a little bit open here. And part of the reason for that is that it helps with that rotation, that tenuch. So as your elbow comes over and locks over the top, it naturally closes in that position. I think one of the other reasons they talk about this is so that you're not tense when you're backing shooter. You should be a little bit relaxed and then tension when it comes forward. So yeah, I'm just trying to give you a good visual here. It makes more sense when in the kote. So it's a little bit of a weird angle above the top. It's kind of just resting in the fingers. And then that roll over.
Okay, so
also plays.
Okay, so that's another. Okay, so I didn't. So here there's a rollover. Okay, I didn't know that. So not
it's more just closing the position, but because you're locking the elbow forward, it should naturally push that thumb over to close the position. So for your tenuch, it should just be like a normal tenuch. It's just closing over the top. I think what they worry about is that if people come underneath, you can't tenouch properly. But one of the other reasons to have it a little bit relaxed here is it comes into play for ura. So one of the tricks with ura is because it's loose, you can kind of let it swing in the fingers slightly. If you're tight, you have to manually move the entire thing. If your fingers are loose, you can kind of use your wrist and your fingers to generate that swing underneath. So you're not having to tense up as much to do it. So until you do the actual ski, and you know this from kendo and everything else, you should be fairly relaxed in the body. It's the strike that should have that tightness. Let me just see if I can grab my kote. It's somewhere here in my room. So just have a bit of a practice at that while I search my kote out. Ow.
Sim, só o que eu gostava de fazer é isto. E a André está a fazer isto. Sim.
Estás a ter dificuldades? Uma colônia aqui, que faça aqui uma confusão.
O Chile. Isso é para ok.
Faça aqui uma confusão aqui.
Mas podes perguntar a Ellen.
É tal coisa que é o que dizes, não é? É isto. Frente à barriga.
Nós podemos perguntar sobre isso.
Tenho muitas dificuldades. Vamos, chefe.
Right.
So I'm just going to turn the camera a little bit so I don't hit the window. So part of it is when you're in kote, it's quite stiff. So you want it resting in the knuckles of the fingers, and then it's just going to close up like a normal tenouch. But you want to make sure you're over the top of the weapon, not to the side. So that's part of it, is making sure you're staying on top of it. Depending on your hand position, again, this is just relaxed here. So this is not a tight grip. This is quite a relaxed grip. That's the lock. And because I'm rotating the elbow over the top, the wrist closes over the top as well. So does that kind of make sense?
Yes, it makes. And I understand that I was doing, because I was doing it like this.
So long.
Yes, instead of this. So, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think part of it too is because you guys have had your kamae a little bit high, and that's probably influenced that positioning a little bit too. So if I was up here, yeah, I'm likely to have a longer grip, especially if I'm doing nodo, but long, open, relaxed, over the top of the weapon, and then just locking over the top. So closing the gate, really. That's not.
Okay. You had one question.
Hi. I like it's the first time I cross Mokujo is fine, okay? But I have difficulty when I strike the back where I put it here. Sometimes I can't feel it here in the arm.
Yeah.
The back of the elbow is difficult.
Okay. Yeah. So this again is a really hard one to get used to if you don't have a sensei in front of you yelling at you a lot. So part of it is you're trying to, again, this is hard because it's all quite dark, is you're almost locking it in to your elbow, into the crook of your elbow here. Okay. Part of this is this hand should be aiming to cover pretty much your left nipple, so your left breast, over your heart. And that's one that's driving everything forward. So if I lock that there, depending on how long your forearms are, so I'm just trying not to smash into a window, I've got this basically lodged against my forearm here. So I don't know if you can see, it's basically pushing right against that forearm. Okay. The big danger with that is it can get a bit bruised. So if you've got a longer forearm, you'll have a bit more of a gap because you'll extend past the mokuju further. The main thing is if you're doing ski, is it should be locked against the body. This is horizontal, so this naturally sits in a horizontal position along the body as well. So the key thing really is just going from here to here. So from hip straight to heart. So this one you can do without the mokuju. It's just getting that nice straight line. So really, when you've got a kata on, you'll feel that because you'll hit the kata. But if you're not wearing kata, you're basically going to keep punching yourself in the pectoral muscle. Is basically where it's going to end up. So from here, as straight as you can, straight to over your heart.
Okay.
So you can practice that without the mokuju, and then you'll start feeling what it is. But if you're finding that you've got it underneath you, then you're probably aiming too high. If it's above, then it's likely to slip back. One of the things to remember is when you're doing mokuju or jukendo, is you're slamming into the kata, you're really pushing it. So if you don't have it locked behind your body and behind your arm, if it's up here, as you push, so I'm just trying to find a bit of wall, that's going to happen. Yeah. So you won't be able to maintain the drive. So lock it in against the body. Even when you're doing nodo, it's raised up, pretty much locked here. So so if you just raise your elbow and try and make it horizontal, that's roughly what you're aiming for. So yeah, just bend that. That should pretty much end up with your right hand over your heart or over your left nipple, and that's kind of the lineup you want. And again, that tells you that everything is going to be horizontal, so aiming for that heart.
But sorry, one question.
Yeah.
If I put my hand on the left nipple, this is oblique, not parallel.
Okay, and that'll be partly because of the length of your forearms, and that's fair enough.
Okay.
Can I get you just to come into this position? So this is just holding with the left hand, keeping this horizontal. Okay. Yeah. So you want the top.
It is too high. Too high.
That's probably okay, actually. Yeah. So part of it is you have a long forearm. What I can see there, what's happening is your wrist is bending that way, and that's the real danger. And I discovered this in Japan. Is if you have your wrist over, as you make more strikes, what you're really doing, is all the pressure, all the power is running right through the wrist there. Yeah. So you want to try and keep the wrist long. So again, this kind of hard to show you with this. I'm trying to keep that wrist long, not bent up or bent down. So it may be that you'll need to adjust your position, but you want to keep this long. If you bend it like that, you're going to. So I know you're about to start the next session or your lunch. But yeah, you don't want your backhand to be bent that way because all the pressure is going straight into your wrist bone. Okay. And you're going to end up with a really sore wrist. So if you need to adjust it so that stays, problem with the Jukendo kogi, they're very long. This, you want kind of a long across the body there. That, every time you hit someone, the pressure is going to go directly into that wrist and you're going to get damage. It's going to get really sore. So if you need to adjust your position so that you get that longer line, that's fine.
Okay.
Yeah. So just try not to let that elbow drop because you're going to end up with that. As I said, once you've done like 30 or 40 ski on someone in a row, you'll feel that. So just, yeah. As I said, I discovered that in Japan after 3 weeks of training. And I wish they told me that sooner.
Okay.
Okay. Yes.
Any other questions before you go to lunch?
I I
Many
don't.
questions?
I have one. Yeah, yeah. I'm thinking about what. So just okay. Last question then maybe.
Well, I'm not going anywhere, so if you want to ask more questions, go ahead.
So okay. So we have to have the proper shimmy here, right?
Mhm.
And so when so what does it mean? So from forward, my body should remain the same, right? So not twisting, not doing anything. My
Right.
arm goes up, and this has to be here, like you're
Long.
talking
Yeah.
about now. Okay, I'm thinking that maybe with Do, this is more natural, and with probably with Kata also. Because without the Do on, what I feel is like I don't have this contact here as much.
Yeah.
Without changing the body.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Once you've got the kata on in particular, that is going to restrict your rotation. It's also going to bring everything out maybe that much further from your body. And this will probably impact how you're feeling with that positioning too. Because you don't just have the door, you've got the do bouton, and then you've got, about an inch or two of kata sticking out. You won't be able to do those positions. So if you pull back on that, all your attacks are going to go off to the side. So you have to keep the body forward for it to work. So a lot of these things that I'm talking about in terms of technical positions, they'll make far more sense when you've both got a kata on, because you'll find you'll have to adjust your kamae. So it's a little bit more forward for Jukendo than it is for Tankendo, I find, because if I have my kata on here, I'm more likely to end up shifted that way. So I need to bring that forward, and so that'll also change where you come up. So your nipple will actually be several inches away from where your nipple actually is. Yeah. So I said a lot of these things I'm saying you'll probably need to adjust when you're not wearing kata, but bear in mind the key points, which is not damaging your wrist, and try and keep it horizontal. So even if that means that you're pushing out a little bit forward of your body, that's fine if that's what works for you to keep that long, rather than crouching in here. So you can see that's bent in, this is bent in. Extend as far as you can with the front arm, and then worry about where the back arm is. So if you need to adjust that way by going, okay, extend front hand, where does that put my back hand? And try and make that your normal when you're not wearing kata. Okay. So I'd rather go with safety first, and then we'll adjust when you're in full boggle. If that makes sense. And that's also why that elbow has to come around in Juken when you're in full boggle, because if you don't, your kata's already bringing you out here. If you don't have it out there, you are forced to come around with that movement. If that elbow's out, you can come straight through. So it's just bearing in mind that the boggle in this is going to change significantly those movements. And it doesn't seem like a lot until you've got it on. Yeah.
Yes,
so look,
since
all your
I
technique look good.
on the Taekwondo, I felt different doing the movements.
Yeah. Another thing that, because I think you're the one who's got the kata there, Eduardo?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. I don't know what you find, but I tend to find I do need to tie the dough up a lot higher, so that the nodo is, when you do a nodo strike, you can actually rest it against the door properly. Otherwise, it's going to leave you a bit more exposed. And hitching it up will make it a little bit easier for the kata to sit on too.
Yes, yes,
So
yes.
if you need to play with pulling the dough up higher, you might find it's okay lower, but here with the kata we've got some fairly iffy ones from Tosando. They're not the best quality. They do need the dough up a little bit higher to sit better over the chair.
Especially because of the common air here on the side. Yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes.
Yeah. So again, better to have it up a little bit higher and protect yourself if your kata wants to raise up a bit. So just bear that in mind.
Hi.
Because you've probably got the same kata. Because did you get yours off Simon?
No, I got it from Terada Sensei. Terada Sensei gave me.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yours is probably better than most people's then.
It
Probably got a
was
much better one.
it's an old one. The good thing about being an old one is that it can already move. It moves.
Yeah.
It's okay. It's not like super stiff. I can't do truck talks.
I have a whole bunch here that Simon left, and they are extremely stiff. It doesn't matter how much you stamp on them. And yeah, they are not the best ones, so they don't fit as nicely. So you're lucky having that one that's already kind of worn in. It'll probably sit a bit better. But again, raising up the dough just protects you a little bit more for stuff.
Yes, yes. It always raises up a little on the kata. So if there's a gap there, ouch.
Yeah. So yeah, just bear in mind you might want to bring it up higher. That's all.
Hi.
Yeah. Other than that, any other questions?
You have any questions?
Want to have your lunch break?
Yeah.
No, sorry. No knowledge, no questions.
Fair enough. All right. Well, look. I'll just pop this away. Again, thank you very much for inviting me to be part of your 11th anniversary celebration.
Thank you very much for joining us.
You're very welcome. I hope you enjoyed the next couple of sessions you've got today. And yeah, if you've got any other questions, or if in the future, if you and Elio are running a session and you together and you want some feedback, if we manage to tee up a time, I'm happy to try and sit in. So
yes, when this gets a little better here in Portugal, the situation with Corona, let's see if we can do this like between us. It will be a very nice class.
all right, we'll see how we go.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Thanks them for all
Thank you very much.
I like it very much. Thank you.
Good. I'm glad you had fun.
I like it a lot. Thank you.
I love it. So I am always happy to share. So yes. Arigato gozaimasu. Have a fantastic rest of the day.
Thanks, and bye-bye.